And I think too many of this is not about of these newfangled ideas have not gone back to the roots. I required every student, and I got this from my English professor, who was going to major in education, to take the introduction education from me. I don't think you could probably do that today in American liberties and so forth. And the reason I said that, I found that so many of the younger teachers did have some background, but not the depth you need to know. For example, I didn't get a course in philosophy of education. You know, where did you get? Who is your favorite philosopher? Anybody here know Counts?
No.
Oh my God, George Counts! You don't know him?
They didn't teach them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The basic core and why I taught it. I had other people teaching it. Just briefly, George Counts was around the 30s, and he wrote a book. And the reason he wrote the book was he did not feel that the European model school system that we just deposited in America was really meeting the needs of us. And I'm saying this because that's in social justice. So he wrote a book called Dare the School to Build a New Social Order. Remember that. And what do you think happened to it?
Got shamed.
No, what happened? The leaders in America at that time, who were business people and so forth, did not want to change. So they banned his book, almost ran him out of here. And what has happened? Nobody has dared to build that new social order and the changes that need to be made to this day. If you go back and look at all of the catalogs, I left Clark in 1986. Basically, it's the same. If you look at the liberal arts core. So I'm saying, all of these years, nobody. Fortunately, that I was able to take a course from him at the University of Colorado. If you don't do anything else, just go back and read what he. And what I'm saying, he was a member of, I guess you would call it the Reconstructionism in terms of schools of philosophy. We all know about his idealism and all that good stuff. But this was a modern school that was started in the United States, a school of philosophy. And I kind of am an eclectic and believe in all of it, but that is my model. That's where I come from. And I think there are three things that ought to be going on at all times that are not going on as we make these new models. We need to look at the foundation. That's what it's based on. Evaluate it, take the best parts of it, think of creative ways and innovative, meshing the two, and so we come at a better place. Now, the other thing I'd like to make, how do you build a house?
From the ground up.
Now, how is the American system built?
Down.
Now, what's that saying to you? That's even against nature. You don't put a roof up there and then hang the stuff up. And here the colleges control the high school curriculum. You know. So those are two problems I have with today. And I guess I'm 92, so I can look at it from a real different perspective. My third point is there has never been a real scientific study to tell us how good any of these curriculums are since 1938, and that's when the Progressive Association, now I left in 96, I don't know what they've been doing since I left, but that is the only scientific curriculum experiment has been in America. It started with the Progressive Education Association. And what they did was they set up 30 schools that had your traditional curriculum. And they paired them with 30 schools, and they say just go make any kind of curriculum you want to. And I think there were about 1,500 people in this study. They carried them from high school to college. They did this over a period of 8 years. And you know what they found out? Yes. There wasn't any curriculum any better than the other that prepared children to college. They did find out that those came from more experimental curriculum, were elected to offices on the college campus more. They were more likely to be on the honor rolls and so forth. But we haven't had any curriculum experiments to really test these new things we have to see are they any better really than what we have. I worked with something called Teacher Corps. You know about Teacher Corps, okay. Now I don't know whether the students I worked with in Teacher Corps at the same time I had students in my records any better, because we set up no way of evaluating whether it's good, bad, and different. But anyway, when the money goes, it doesn't matter. They just blot them all, blot them all out. And maybe it's better. That's just where I come from. First, I think we're against nature in the way we were built. And nobody has had the guts to even change it or even think about changing it. Then we don't have any evaluation to tell whether what we're implementing is better than what we did. No scientific evidence. And the people in charge, whoever they are, at any time, at one time it was the ministers, one time it was the business people. Now don't ask me who's in charge now, other than Gates and people who have money. That's not scientific, that's just me. So better to you ask me questions and I respond to you. I think you might get a little more, because I could talk forever. I got a whole lot of stories.
Sometimes that's actually good. Sometimes it's just what we need.
But what do you want to ask me about your program? I'm very blunt and frank, and I don't have to have a job.
I'd love to hear, because you were at the AU Center during many of the more tumultuous times of social change, and I'd love to hear what you saw your role as an educator in that process. I know, especially on HBCUs, there were.
Well, let's talk about the era when we were moving from. I don't call it integration. We didn't integrate anything in desegregation. The AU Center, which is unique, and the students, as you could understand, they were ready for change, and they wanted to make it overnight, and using more drastic ways of doing it. The college presidents, which they looked at as old fogey and, not understanding their plight. But what the young people didn't understand, you just can't make these changes overnight. And then at Clark, we were predominantly black college, but we had 1 or 2 or 3 white faculty members. And in my department, I had 1 white. Well, I was on the Multicultural Commission of the AACTE. And here I am trying to write something. I said, I don't have any white folks on my faculty or any other ethnic group. So I had to go back and rethink that. And just as I had got this white professor, then all hell broke loose. And the kids told me, you got to fire him. We don't need no white man over, here I am, a teacher. What they didn't understand, even if I had wanted to, you got to know there are tenure rules. There are all kind of rules. And I tried to explain to them this, but the bright students understood it. But I did say, whenever another vacancy came, I would find me a black person. Well, majority schools, whenever one of them, because I was out several years before that, became available, what did they do? They siphoned them off, and then when we offered the puny salaries, you don't know, we had puny salaries at Clark, and these white schools would offer them these great big salaries, you know, wherever they go. And it wasn't until I tried, Butler University really produced quite a number of them. And the dean over there, I was working with him, he said, Pearlie, you're not going to get them to come down to Clark. That changed when several years after some of them got into some of these institutions, and I hired more, and some stayed with us. So it was really a process where students, you know what they call me? An Oreo. I was black on the outside and white. But we had to face those kinds of trials during that particular time, but it all leveled out, and we were more normalized. The same thing about students. When they decided to put student teachers in schools in Atlanta, again, it was desegregated. They would probably take 2 minority students as student teachers and place them in a school with 28 whites. And neither one of them were prepared for the transition. I write speeches, and I heard Lena Horne on a program, and it was during this period, and she said, how can we get this in? They asked her, how do you think we could get integration going? You know what Lena told me? Until Wall Street decides that we're going to have integration, we ain't going to have none. And how many years ago was that she said that? We can sell anything in America if we want to. A good example is when we were rushing with Russia to put that man on the space. What did we do? We mobilized education in that particular period. It was the flowering of it, and after they got him under there, education has never had that particular status from my perspective. Yeah. So it's an evolutionary process. You cannot go. What corporate America cannot understand, you cannot measure teaching and human beings with the same preciseness that you could a car. Right. And they want us to do things too quickly. And we don't have the tools yet, really, to measure. I remember at a conference, I don't remember who the Secretary of Education, I've been here so long. But anyway, at the time, he said he had a friend who worked with the Ford Motor Company. And he was saying that we ought to be able to learn something from industry. And this is what he said. He said, the people who designed these fancy cars, put 3 round lights and so forth were in one building. And the people who had to put them together were across town. And what would happen, they would never be in the same place. And go backwards and forward. And say, one of the men in the who has to produce it say, hey, you all have thought of just letting one of us sit in here. And we can tell you before it goes over there. He said it cut the production of about 5 years. How many of you remember when Clinton took all of the governors up to this place to arrange education? It may be too young.
Oh, thank you.
They're too young.
Well, anyway, but anyway, he was going to revolutionize education. He didn't even invite a newspaper man from education. Now imagine all of those governors, some of them who hadn't been in a school in 150 years, didn't know how to spell education, going to write something for education. And we still have that same problem. I bet you everybody down there at the who makes policy down there came through and took those same courses, know what psychology, education. They sit up there and make those policies, and they know they're wrong. But we have a problem of I guess I call it selective amnesia. Or sometimes people tell me principals who were good teachers, when they get to be principals, you don't know who they are. So we do have some problems. But they aren't, we can solve them. We don't need a heap of people, we just need a few good people. With strong backs, determination, and persistence. We will get the job done.
I think you have a question. Are you?
No, I was
okay.
I have a question about this point you raised of like we just need some people with persistence, strong backs. How do you feel about when those people don't come from the places, like don't come from this community? What do you think about that? What do you think we should do to better prepare folks who potentially don't come from the communities that they are going in to serve and to teach in? Like, how do we better prepare them?
Well, now, what we actually, in the teacher education program in Clark College, I don't know about, when they
merged too.
merged. The first thing, after, as I said, taught this course, and of course, American Civil Liberties inspired me and everything else, because I had no problem. After I observed and sent them out to do some observation, telling that person, you just don't fit. You need to find you another profession, because I think the rights of children are more important than what I want to do. Now, as I said, I couldn't get away with it, I don't think, today.
But maybe we could.
But
maybe we could. I don't know.
And again, I didn't just set up that selective admissions policy from scratch. I did my doctoral dissertation for the purpose of setting up a criteria for admissions into teacher education. And if you didn't meet them all together, we would give you a period where you could probably, now some of it was subjective, but I felt that only the best people who really like children need to go into teaching. And so that's one of the ways. Now, as I say, you have to have an administration or something that's kind of halfway. And my president did have faith, and we had some good people in there. He let us do that, as I say, Watson. Then, as soon as they got into the teaching profession, we started them going out on little trips with whatever class they might have been taking that was compatible. Some went to the YMCA, others went to nursing schools and so forth. Or if it was in a high school, go in there and find out what it's like, learn as much as you can about the environment. And then gradually they did more and more. So by the time they really got to student teaching, they had a real good feeling. For example, we required them to take educational psychology or child psychology, introduction to education, school and society, and methodology. But before you could get the methodology, you had gone into this. And many of them would tell us, when they go out there, no need of us talk about this stuff y'all teaching up there. Because when we get out into school, none of it is happening. But because none of it is happening in the schools does not necessarily mean it isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And I done had a special program where a human relations guy in New York wanted us to send some of our students up there because they really needed them and wanted them to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reading teacher, in whatever book she used, they talked about 6 groups of reading students. Well, in most of our schools, we had the butterflies, the bears, and whatever, only 3 groups. But when she went up there, a different environment, parents, help, they had 6 schools. Now, had she not been exposed to them 6 schools in that class, she would have been in all this. So I say, don't worry. Look for the idea. You may be able to use it and you may not. Another one just around home by the university, with those apartments, near the university. Mm-hmm. At that time, the lady had a nursery school. In fact, my daughter went to that nursery school, Miss Wilton's nursery school. And this student was taking children's literature. She had just come out of child development. And she asked me, could she go, but it was new and observed, and I said, yes, you got to participate too. So the head teacher told her, what did she want to do? She said, I'm taking children's literature. I'd just like to tell stories and story out. And man, she practiced that stories, something about babe or B-A-B, something about a little elephant, if you know anything about it. And she was sharp that day. She was dressed in the tea. And she got in there, she started a story. And every animal she would call, the children would holler, yell, and take it away from her. She got so disgusted. She said, y'all be quiet, let me finish my story. So by that time, the children thought she was gone crazy. So by that time, the teacher took over. And she went and cried. And so, the teacher told me, she said, when you come back next week, we will go over this and see what really happened. She said, didn't you take a course up there? They require you to take child development. And she said, yeah. She said, well, how do children learn language development? She said, I see no relation to that. So I'm saying you have to show children by experience and help them to relate there. Mm-hmm. And she learned, that some of that stuff that she almost didn't pass. And she cursed out the teacher too. Carol, Dr. Boulder was a child development teacher, but anyway, I'm saying you have to get into. Now on the secondary level, this young man became the superintendent of schools in Atlanta. And he was a brilliant English major.
Which one? What was his name?
Moses. No. He's over that corner now teaching. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they tried to, I guess, pit the best that we had, even real teachers, and send them to these white schools. He was a very brilliant guy. And his English teacher, her favorite play for them to read was Merchant of Venice. He went out to white community, predominantly Jewish, and his teacher died when he talked about the Merchant of Venice, because Jews don't like that too well. But had we sent him out there in that community earlier so he could talk with the teachers, so he would have known. So you've got to have these experiences to be able. I almost got fired from my first job, and incidentally, the young lady saw me. This is at a funeral, and she thought I didn't know who she was, but I remember that those days of the projects where I was doing a summer program with children. They were door key children. And you know what door key children are?
Latchkey.
Oh, well, you can tell my age. But we're the same difference. And many of those mothers had to leave, early in the morning to go out to white homes. And the kids didn't really come. smelling good and all that sort of thing. And I had come up from a middle class family where my mama used to push my ears back and see that you wash behind them. But you know, did you put Vaseline on your legs and then sparkle? But anyway, these children didn't come from anything like that. And I was getting ready to just quit. And the lady wouldn't let me quit. She said, "You do not quit." So then I had to think out the box and what I could do. And this little girl, one day I brought her home with me, and she stayed the weekend, and she powdered and perfumed and so forth. And I helped a lot of them. So when she got through, she said, "You know, I was Miss Kraft then." She said, "I'm going to be somebody someday." Many years, whatever it takes to get there, she was in the line at Clark's to register. She said, "You remember me?" I said, "The thing." She said, "I was told you I was going to be somebody." And she finished Clark and became a principal. But it just shows you, a lot of people would come in this situation just like I did. Now, this is black on black. This ain't nothing about white on and black, you know, not really knowing and being able to fit in and empathize with. They don't need your sympathy. And put yourself in somebody's skin. That's a hard job.
What called you to education?
Huh?
What called you to education?
Oh, let me see. Everything in my family. My auntie was a principal. My auntie was a first grade teacher. And some of my teachers in high school.
Your uncle was a...
Yeah, my uncle was my auntie. So it just was no, the problem was where you were going to the money and which college you were going to. And I've never, you know, regretted the choice. I'm not sure what I feel like today. Is my daughter, who's a middle school teacher, she come back and tell me some of the experiences she's having. I don't know, but they weren't that delicate when I was. And then you had more support from parents. And I think that's where we're really going to have to work. I don't care how many laws we put in. I don't care what they say. The parents are the first teachers. And I think some of them, I don't think all of them don't want to learn the skills, because nobody gives you a pattern book, you know, how to be a parent when you get it. You just, but I don't know how we're going to find a way to let parents know that they are the first teachers. I wrote a chapter in this book, whatever it's called, What Works with Parents. And I was saying at least
Like 4 housing courage.
yes, the bottom. What works with parents. It's a compilation of doctors and people who have worked with children for over 35 years, and they all told, and mine was that I thought that we need to help parents understand, you know, the things they need to do with their children. In fact, I think it was the other night, and they were saying about how children, if they have to work hard and they don't stick with a task. And I was saying early in life, you got to teach children